I'm Eric Persing from Spectrasonics, and I'm here with Synthtopia at Superbooth. And we've got something very cool that we are introducing for the first time. And this is a brand new version of Omnisphere 2.5. And it has a very special feature called hardware synth integration. And this is really the first synthesizer, the first software synthesizer that has this kind of hardware integration in the world. And basically what it does is it allows us to use all the functions of popular hardware synthesizers as a controller for Omnisphere. So, but it's not like a standard controller because everything works at a really, really high level. In fact, it actually feels like that you, when you're playing Omnisphere this way, it feels like you're using a hardware synth. And so one of the things I'll have to keep reminding you is that everything you're hearing is coming from Omnisphere and not from the actual synths. So I just have them connected. We don't even have the audio outputs connected on these synths. So we're going to start with using the Moog Voyager. So the Moog Voyager is a classic. It's been around since early 2000s. And so all of these synthesis functions are controlling Omnisphere. And we've dramatically expanded the synthesis features in Omnisphere so that we now have four layers instead of two. So it's like an exponential increase in power. We now have 8 LFOs, 12 envelopes, all per patch, and it's incredibly powerful. And there's now 48 patch points that are all programmable, the modulation matrix. So but the Omnisphere's always been powerful. But the trick is, how do you control it? How do you control all that power? So that's what's exciting about this, is we now have hands-on control. So let's take a listen to using it with the Voyager. Okay, so, and again, what you're hearing is Omnisphere. We're just using a MIDI cable for the Voyager. And so all of the functions in the Voyager work. So if I'll turn off all the oscillators here. And we'll start with just one oscillator. And you can see, like for instance, if I turn glide on and off, you can see the glide changing and the rate changing. But also I can change the pitch, and I can change the waveform. So if you look at there on the Moog, go to the second oscillator. See, and that's perfectly matching. So now I've got so all of those functions work, including like modulation. So if I turn modulation on, now I've got so it's just like everything on the synth works. But then there's things that you can do in Omnisphere that you can't do on Moog Voyager. So like everything I've done so far is like things that sound sort of like a Moog Voyager. But of course a big one is that Moog Voyager is monophonic. but I can change Omnisphere to be polyphonic. So now it's kind of weird to see, you know, playing chords on it. And we have effects. So we'll use the external to be the effects send. So you get the analog experience, but with the advantages of what you can do with Omnisphere. So another thing that we can do is really cool, which is the orb. And so on the orb, it does all kinds of cool things in Omnisphere. And lo and behold, there's an XY touch plate on the Moog Voyager. So when I touch it, you can see it engages the orb, and I can move it around. So that's really, really cool. You can do a lot of things that you wouldn't normally be able to do. There's things like the filter spacing works. So if I take that sound, we'll kind of slow it down here. If I space the filters out now, you get that kind of nice vowel-y type of. Yeah, and again, that's all coming from Omnisphere. So you can use something like a Voyager, or let's go to like something completely opposite. So this is System 8 from Roland. This just came out like about a year ago. So all we have to do is in the hardware drop-down, just select the synth that we want to use. So I'll select Roland System 8, and that's all there is to it. Now everything is set up to work with the System 8. And now I've got and so we've got things like different wavetables. So instead of using the Moog wavetables, we're using like JP8000 wavetables and Juno 106. So it's got a little more of that, you know, character like the a Roland kind of character to it. And you can do things like, you know, use the arpeggiator. You have a high-pass filter, or you can even use like the, you can change the filter types to like a band pass. And we'll bring up some filter modulation here. Or we can change it to like the vowel filter. So then each one of these profiles we have a new hardware library of sounds that comes with 2.5. And these are all sounds that we've created using these profiles. So I can call up something like this, and so there's a whole set of sounds for the System 8. There's a set of sounds for the Voyager. Each one has a different set of sounds. You can mix and match. You can use different sound, you know, the hardware library sounds with other profiles. But something like this is like a. So yeah, lots and lots of different sounds. So let's go over to the OB6. This is Dave Smith OB6, and this is an example of something where we added a special feature in Omnisphere just for the OB6. So let's take this brass sound. And the OB6 has a very special filter. It has what's called a state variable filter. And so it can morph between low pass, notch, and high pass. And so we've developed we developed a state variable filter in Omnisphere so you could use it with this profile. You can also use it if you don't have this hardware, but that's an example of how we're modifying Omnisphere to work with the hardware instead of the other way around. So so here's some examples of the using the there's the low pass, and as I change the notch, and then high pass. So it's great for adding that. Change the band pass. And I can modulate all of that. So, like if I bring up the modulation, I'll turn it off on the oscillators. And then we'll add the filter mode. So now. Turn unison on. So yeah, so it's really powerful, and every single, all the modulation stuff works, and everything just kind of works. So so probably at some point people are thinking, well, if I'm not a hardware person, I don't know if I want to spend $2,000 or $3,000 to get a hardware synth. We also support all the boutiques, so all the boutiques have this functionality too. So so it's really cool. So if so I'll call up like the, let's say the JX03, which is the little JX3P model, and call up a sound like this. And it has that great kind of 80s vibe to it. I can turn the chorus on and off. Yeah, so you can. So it's small, but it's really it works great because like all the same functions work. And again, in this case we're using like the JX3P wavetables and things that really evoke that particular synth. So same thing with the JP08. And let's check out a little of the SH01. This is a really fun one because this synth is normally a single oscillator synth, and it's great for bass. Again, this is Omnisphere, not the SH01. So that gives me my 4-layer control there. So I've got my square, saw, sub, and noise. But I can do some things that I can't do on the hardware, like, for instance, I can take the tuning knob and I have that routed to detune, which you can't do on the SH101. And the internal sequencer works too, so you can like sequence apart. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. So that's a little bit of the SH01, and then we've got like the VPO3. So this is the little Roland Boutique vocoder. And again, it always calls up like the correct sounds within Omnisphere. So now I can control all those elements. So yeah, so even something like that makes a cool little interface, and because we have all of those sounds, you know, are in Omnisphere, and like everything you're hearing there is that those are all DSP waveforms, and but you can also use any of the sound sources. You can use your own user audio. All the things that Omnisphere can do can be controlled this way. So, and the SEO2. So yeah, so these are a great option for a couple $100. You put this next to your desktop, and or you know, carry it with you, and now you've got like a killer. I mean, the controls are small, but and then you're not limited, you know, obviously by the number of voices and stuff that these have. You have full polyphony and you can do everything. So they make great little controllers. Probably one of my favorites is the Sub 37. And again, each one of these profiles has a unique aspect to them. And on the Sub 37, one of the best aspects of it is the multi-drive function. It's a great distortion. And so we really have it nailed. And without it, you know, it's a lot cleaner. Here, so we'll clean this up. Yeah, so it's really, really powerful. And let me show you on, let's start with just an initial patch. So this is just like Omnisphere, just the startup default multi. And I want to show you how sophisticated this is. Okay, so if I go to, for example, if I go to the filter in Omnisphere, you can see when I touch the cutoff, you can see the filter just turns on automatically. So, and if I change the filter type, it changes the filter type in Omnisphere. Okay, and then let's say I want to have I want a duo mode. I want to turn that into I can make that unison, which the Sub 37 doesn't have. And now the beat frequency is unison detune. Okay, and then now I want to do some modulation of the, let's say I want to add some vibrato. So I can come over here and just touching this, it creates LFO1 to pitch course in the mod matrix. So it's, and there's LFO1 to the cutoff. Same thing with a double. So yeah, so all of that's happening. All that's happening all just from controlling functions on the Sub 37. All those mod routings. Now let's check out with the multi-drive. So when so we got a blank rack here. There's nothing in the rack. And when I touch the multi-drive, watch what happens. Boom. So it instantiates effects, and it sets up the effects and scales them. So, so this is one of our Vox guitar amps, and the distortion circuit in this is really nice. It sounds very vintage, a lot like the multi-drive sound in the actual Sub 37. So watch what happens when I turn the knob. It instantiates that, it turns it on, and then when you change the level and the master, it cranks up the level and it turns the master gain down. All, in a real musical way. So this is a lot more than just regular MIDI learn. It's like very sophisticated. And like, for instance, so that's how we designed it to sound. But if I were to just call that effect up in Omnisphere, like stock, it sounds like this. So it has like cabinet simulation and everything. But all I have to do is just touch it. And now it's returned that whole effect like to that one state. So there's like lots of stuff going on in the background so that when you touch a knob, it just does it. It works like it's supposed to. So that's kind of the magic of it. And same thing with like the waveforms. For example, I'll turn all the waveforms on here. And if I just hit keyboard reset, you'll see all of these wavetables, boom, they become Sub 37 wavetables. And so now, now it's got the Sub 37 kind of vibe to it. And we've got, and it matches the panel perfectly. So like there's this triangle, saw, square, and pulse. And if we can use the feedback to bring in reverb. So if I turn the effects on and off, I just open up a whole rack of reverbs. Yeah, so it's really, really powerful. It's a lot more than just like cut off and kind of the usual stuff. Everything on the Sub 37 basically works. The arpeggiator, everything controls that functioning in Omnisphere. So then on the Prophet 6, the biggest difference between the Prophet 6 and the OB6 is that has a state variable filter, the OB6. This has high pass and low pass simultaneous. So here's the and when I change the cutoff, I'll show you what happens internally. I open the filter zoom. You can see the filter 2 turns into a high pass. So yeah, it's really, really cool. Here's a couple sounds. So yeah, so it's really, really powerful. And this is the Rev 2. I mean, I could keep going on and on. There's tons and tons of stuff. So there's hundreds of new patches in the hardware library. You don't have to have the hardware, any of the hardware synths to use the hardware library. So just regular Omnisphere users can use any of those sounds too. And so there's a huge sound library, all of the expanded synthesis capabilities, and all of these different hardware profiles. And so this is free. This is a free update to any Omnisphere 2 users, and it's going to go into public beta next week. And so that'll be available, and you can the users can sign up. And so this will just be included in Omnisphere 2 now. But we're really excited about it because it really bridges that gap between the experience of using a software synth where you can't have that tactile interface, but now you can.